Saturday night at midnight. If you need an extension on that, please let me know sooner rather than later. Um, and I just want to remind everyone, I'll put this in an announcement later too, but that I want to see a small paragraph that goes over the revisions that you made. And I would like it to be more than a sentence on I made changes according to your comments. I really want you guys to think for a moment about why I'm making the comments that I am and think about either the reader experience that I'm focused on or the functionality of your conventions that might have been confusing whatever I said. So think about, yeah, why these changes should be made and see if you can come up with maybe my mental process and express that in a paragraph. So it's very good practice for how you can look for things as you do your own revision before you submit the next paper. So I highly encourage that. And then the other aspect of that is to highlight the changes that you make. Generally, the more highlights you see, the better a revision is. Doesn't always have to be the case, but if you're seeing very few highlights, that should be a red flag. And yeah, as I said,
Are we supposed to highlight changes that we make? Like physically, like highlight with?
highlight in Word. So you use words highlight ability to
Okay.
highlight the sentences, make them yellow, red, pink, whatever, I don't care, as long as I can read it. But you're wanting to make it very visible, the changes that you've made.
Okay. All right.
So for revisions, will you explain how to do all that again in the announcement?
Yes. Do you have a particular question, Tony?
No, I just didn't fully remember what we were supposed to do last time. So
Sure. Yeah, I'll put it in an announcement. Because the main idea that I'm getting at is that I want you guys to be able to see the rationale behind the comments that I leave. You know, I'm not trying to shred your guys' papers for no reason. So to be able to put yourself into that mindset of here are the changes that I made and here's why I made them is a great way to prep your mind to see those things as you write. And then, yeah, as I said, the highlighting is just kind of a general, I'm making some substantial changes to my paper, and that's a good thing. Yeah, it also helps me because I'm not going to read each original copy and then each new copy. I don't have time for that. Wish I did. Okay, so that being said, some general observations about the second paper. As I said, the average for this paper was quite a bit lower than the average for the first paper, and I encourage everyone to revise and to please email me to meet with me if necessary to go over some things that should and can be revised. I think the interesting thing is that most of the issues are pretty fixable. So I think that if we tackle those issues, paper grades should rise significantly. So I'm very confident about that. I think the two biggest issues that I saw in the papers from the class as a whole are quotations. So please recall the proper incorporation method for quotes. If you need to go back and look at the source sandwich from the second chapter, do that. I had also shared with you guys my ICE acronym about incorporation, citation, explanation. When we don't incorporate quotes correctly, i.e. giving an introduction, stating who is saying the information, what their credentials are, using a quotation, and then explaining how the quote is relevant to the claim that we're making as a whole, we can very easily confuse the reader. So thinking through either the source sandwich or the ICE acronym that I gave you is a great way to ensure that you are ticking those boxes and that the reader is understanding where you're getting your information from. That being said, I didn't realize that just using paraphrasing was so popular. Paraphrasing is a slippery slope in this type of academic writing. It has to be done very particularly, and it still, in a way, follows the same source sandwich or the ICE structure. You need to introduce a paraphrase, so either like according to blah, 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 the CDC says, whatever.
Is this the other major problem that we had with our paper, or is this still part of the quotations?
This kind of goes hand in hand, but it was a thing that I saw in a lot of papers. So just as when we use direct quotes, when we don't follow the source sandwich or ICE structure for paraphrasing, it can be very confusing as to where our words and ideas end and where someone else's ideas and words begin. Direct quotations for research papers is preferred to paraphrasing. I'm not going to say you can't use paraphrasing, because it can be a very helpful and useful way to introduce ideas. But it is also going to be very important that you identify exactly what aren't your own words. And more than that, oftentimes a direct quote gives you a stronger ethos than a paraphrase. If someone can say, this is the CDC's words, these are the director of the FCC's words, these are this animal rights organization's group's words, those have a lot more weight value to add to your argument than a paraphrase that might be construed as just an assumption that you're making. Does that make sense? Heather, you've got a quizzical look. I encourage balance.
I'm letting it sink in.
Yeah, I encourage at least balance. You shouldn't only use paraphrasing. I think that's the big takeaway, is that, yeah, only paraphrasing can weaken your paper. Use a mix. I encourage direct quotes. So you just find the mix that makes you happy, as long as you keep in mind that, like I said, paraphrasing can be confusing. And then another issue, sorry, lost my train of thought for a moment, is when we make claims. How to say this? I highly encourage each one of you to use many quotes in each of your paragraphs. That's a great way to add to your ethos and to get to the length that you guys are going to need to be getting to. I was kind of surprised that many people only use one quotation from each source that they used, which met the requirements, but missed an opportunity to greatly strengthen your authorial ethos and to entertain these ideas to keep the development of the paper rolling. And I'm trying to think about how to say this without sounding like a hard ass. Just be very careful making any claim that that your reader won't assume that you have the ethos to make. And this goes for all of us. We're all students. We don't conduct our own research. We don't get paid to conduct our own research. Some of you probably do research. We haven't published books on our fields, those types of things. So it's very difficult for any of us to make claims without citing sources, myself included. So when we say things, I'm not going to throw out examples. I'm going to get myself in trouble there. any claim that we make should be backed up by evidence. And there were several papers that didn't do this, and they kind of strayed from using the quotations and favored this more personal, authorial voice, which is going to be an issue for this third paper because we're writing to a skeptical audience. So the skeptical audience is going to look for any reason to discredit what we say. And if we don't provide citations and sources, it's going to be very easy for someone of the opposing viewpoint to rebut against our ideas. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Making claims is treacherous waters. Kayla, I love your thumbs up. Great. Making claims are treacherous waters if you can't back up what you say through one of the sources that you use or through an extra quotation. Tony, great. You might want to revise what you're saying a little bit to sound more objective. Great, good. And as I was saying, as class started, I'm going to be spending some of this time today that we would have been in class looking for more resources on how to interact with quotations and sources. Just because I think that more than anything is where people miss points on these papers, honestly, which is a very easy fix. So there's kind of that good side to it. So I want to find you guys some external resources better than me trying to relate everything to the reader experience to you guys, which is just kind of weird. So I'm going to be doing that when we end this session, looking for things that I think will help you guys, because this making claims and using quotations is going to be the most important aspect of paper 3. And I want to make sure that you guys have the sources, the resources, the tools that you need to incorporate quotes effectively. As I've been saying all along, we're writing to skeptical audiences this time, and the amount of quotations that ideally should be used in this paper are going to be exponentially higher than the amount used in the second paper. And that is because, as we've been learning through our readings and assignments, we're using audience-based reasoning. So we're going to be doing a lot of thinking about the opposing viewpoint, what their warrants, thoughts, beliefs are, quoting from those, and then redirecting it back to our own conversation. And that's going to need to use a quotation too. So yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. Quotations are important. I'm going to find you guys a lot of resources to use about it. We good? Excellent. How are your guys' ideas? Tony, thumbs up. How are your guys' processes for the third paper going? How are you feeling so far? So far, identified a topic? Yeah, one that we feel comfortable sticking with? Heather, that's a face.
I have to read your comments first to see
Oh, yes, that's
if
a
it's
great,
good or not.
yes, that's a great point. I tried to leave you guys pretty extensive comments on the audience analysis assignment that you did on Friday night. So please look over those. I tried very hard to come across kind of as a skeptic and poke at your ideas a little bit and try to prompt further development, questions that you need to consider, trying to put myself, our believing and doubting game from last semester, putting myself in the shoes of someone who would disagree with your argument and trying to help you guys think of ways that you can interact with that and expand your ideas upon it. So I think looking at those comments is going to be extremely helpful as you continue to draft your ideas. So please do that and email me if you have any questions. That's another great point. I'm not getting as many emails as I want to, guys. I'm lonely. I just want to express to each of you that I will absolutely take the time to respond to your emails, to meet with you in Zoom sessions if you need, to go over any confusions for your paper as you're drafting, anything really. I think I can say with certainty that the people who did meet with me the week before the paper was due did on average higher than the people who didn't. And I think that meeting with me as an instructor so that I can help make sure that you're meeting the requirements of the paper, that I can make sure that quotations are being incorporated correctly, is a great tool to not only develop your ideas well, but to make sure that you're saving yourself some points. So I really encourage all of you to reach out to me. I can't corner you guys in class. We're not in person. I can't make you talk to me. So you've got to take it upon yourself to reach out to me. And I would love to talk with each one of you about your papers. So just to kind of wrap things up as we look ahead towards this third paper, as you guys saw from the quiz that you did for Friday, you have the option of doing a traditional research paper or an open letter. And both of these can be a very effective way for you to argue persuasively your point. If you're at all interested in the open letter, I encourage you to read Sarah Inskeep's, yeah, that's her last name. There's some weird S's in there. Her paper that's included in the textbook, I think it's number 5, which might be the last one. Anyway, Sarah Inskeep, she writes an open letter to President Myers about what the university can do to be more environmentally friendly. And it is an extremely effective, persuasive paper idea. So if you're at all interested in that, take a look at that example because it is extremely well done. The open letter can be a fun way to interact with your idea in a slightly less formal and more personal manner. So if that's at all interesting to you, I encourage doing it. It's always fun to maybe not have to write formal research papers, but if that's how you get your kicks, I'm not going to judge. And then sources for this upcoming paper. I know that on the quiz, I said that I am requiring at least 5. I'm sticking to that, but I want to emphasize that I highly encourage using more. I took a look at the average from the examples in the textbook. The average is like 7 or 8. So as many sources as you guys can find that benefit your ideas is great. Don't feel limited to 5. And don't go insane either. Make sure that you're using quotations that are, Heather, looking at you. No. Make sure that you are incorporating quotations that develop your ideas in a beneficial way or that represent your skeptical audience well. A quotation that's in there just to hit a number is probably not a good quotation. So just make sure that it is being beneficial towards your ideas as a whole. And I think that that is all that I wanted to go over for now, because my biggest concern for the day was to go over some of those observations from the second paper. Do you guys have any questions while we're here over paper 2, paper 3, assignments?
Can you tell us what the average was of paper 2?
I think the average was like an 80%.
Darn it.
Yeah, which isn't, it's not terrible, but as I said, paper 1 was higher than that. So yeah, as I said before, anyone who wants to revise, absolutely do it. I'm free most of the week to meet, to go over my comments, things. So I'm putting that out there again. Heather, you look like you were about to ask something.
Oh, I was just wondering what's going on this week. in this class?
This week I made pretty easy because I'm going to go out of town on Wednesday, but that does not mean that I'm unavailable. It just means that I tried to make my grading load a little bit less. So you have a discussion tonight. I'm not requiring you to respond to anybody because it's one that's really weird to respond to. I know what it's like to have to respond to discussion boards where you feel like there's no way to interact. It's like, oh my God. So it's just answering some questions about a student example paper. This gets the gears going for how an effective persuasive research paper looks and yeah, the qualities of it. So it's a relatively easy assignment. I'm sure the thing that will take you the longest is reading the actual student example, but it's going to be a very good resource for you guys going forward to see what an A paper looks like. Between now and Friday, I would really encourage you guys to interact with secondary sources. There are resources this week to use the K-State Library and their databases and some things to look at regarding that. I would encourage you guys to have at least 2 sources by the end of the week. I'm not requiring that, but I think that that's a very good way to stay on track for the paper coming up. And if you've got 2 sources that you think you can incorporate well, you can, I think, feel pretty confident that you are in a good place for the 3rd paper. There's also a brief survey. That was one of the things that I thought to include as a way for students to express concerns to me for this 3rd paper or any other concerns about the course. It should be ungraded, but I do think I have it due on Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday. That's when that's due. And then there's another assignment due on Friday. And I am blanking on what that is. I apologize, but I will include it in my announcement. Yeah, no, it's not coming to me. Oopsies, sorry guys. Yeah. So a relatively easy week assignment wise, but the reason that I do that, not only because I'm going out of town, I'm not totally selfish, is because I want you guys to be thinking about secondary sources. I think assignments aside, if you guys are finding good sources, you're preparing yourselves well for this 3rd paper. And I'd be concerned if we don't have sources soon. So I think that that's a good way to balance these 2. Any other questions? All right, excellent. As always, email me. I want to talk to you guys. And yeah, let me know if there's anything we can talk about regarding revisions, all that. So have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Here, let me